From walkie-talkies to bricks, to flip phones and now touch screens, these devices have made their way into our lives, and now, like life support, we cannot live without them. They can connect us with anyone around the world, meet new, like-minded people, those who create, dream, and can inspire us to achieve. But there is a catch. These apples, not pears, can lead us down some slippery stairs into the mobile world, where time seems to be a separate state of affairs. A quick check turns into a long scroll, and 20 minutes later, we forgot why we got it out at all. We pull them out just to put them back again, an instinct to reach when we are on our own. To be seen to be doing nothing would make us look alone. We scroll and we swipe, sometimes just to pass the time, and yes, it captures some of our favourite pastimes, but I think it's about time we pass on this. And no, I don't mean pass this on to a younger generation, but more like reevaluate our participation. They're called mobiles, cell phones, and smartphones. But they keep us in place, stuck to a screen, as we sell our concentration and attention whilst being sold perfection, ads, fads, and trends. This doesn't sound oh so smart to me. It seems like it never ends. The average person in the UK spends 2 hours and 28 minutes on their mobile phone each day. Each year, that's 54,020 minutes over 37 days. And if you take away the time you rest your head on that pillow in your bed, almost 15% of your year is spent on that screen. We can act like it's not a problem, but maybe you'll agree that that seems a bit obscene. Try not to beat yourself up though. Don't forget this device is designed to drive your desire to scroll and inquire while dopamine flows make you higher. With each light that transpires, your attention it spreads like fire. This isn't the Garden of Eden. Not since we have tasted this apple. I guess all we can try to do is use it in moderation and try not to give into that temptation. There are 5 billion mobile phones in the world, and over half of these are smartphones. Now, there are so many benefits that this technology provides us with. It allows us to connect with our friends and family around us, but also around the world. It gives us access to information regarding a whole host of things, and we're able to stay up to date. It also allows you to get involved with movements around the world, but also connect and meet up with people and get involved with movements locally that are important to you. One of the main things that it's helped me with is meeting like-minded people who I may not have even met if it hadn't been for platforms like Instagram, and I've been able to make amazing friendships, and I'm sure many of you have done the same. You may even be watching this video on your phone right now. The point of me listing these benefits before getting into this topic is that mobile phones themselves aren't good or bad. They are neutral in this, but it is how we use them and whether we use them positively or negatively and where the balance is struck there. So I think we can all agree that mobile phones and the technology on them is really beneficial for us, but at the same time there are also negative issues associated with the use of these things and the overuse of them, and the focus needs to be on how we can intentionally use them for good to help us achieve the things that we want to achieve. So what's important is that we think about how we use them and how intentional we are with them. For example, when was the last time you looked at your phone? You might even be looking at it right now. Apart from this, how many times have you used it today? How long have you used it for? What apps, what purposes have you used it for? How many of those interactions were positive, were intentional? These are the things we need to think about. But if you were to ask me that question, most of the time I wouldn't be able to tell you. And I think most of us would probably have the same experience, because reaching for our phone now has become a reaction. It's become programmed into us. If we're in a queue, if we're going to the bathroom, if we're waiting for someone, we pick up our phone and we use it for that instant gratification, away from boredom, away from feeling lonely, away from a lack of connection. And that is what it gives us. And the numbers are pretty alarming. In the UK, it's thought that the average person picks up their phone every 12 minutes. And the average phone use time is about 2 hours and 28 minutes a day. And if you're 18 to 24, it is closer to 3 hours and 14 minutes of use on average per day. That is mind-blowing. So we are committing a lot of time to these devices. Like I said, how much of that time is positive, constructive, and intentional? How much of that is benefiting us in the things we want to strive towards? But looking at these stats, is it surprising that we're using these devices so much? We are literally dealing with devices that are designed to get us to use them. As the author and historian Yuval Noah Harari says,
humans are now hackable animals. To hack a human being means to understand that human better than he or she understand themselves.
what this means is that science is able to understand better than ever the reasons why we do things. And this is beneficial for governments and corporations who look to target us and to really sort of manipulate those behaviors for their own gain, for their own benefit. And yes, it can be positive to have this information, but it depends whose hands it is in and what their intentions are. With this information, it is easier than ever for them to appeal to us and to get us using these apps and these programs and these mobile phones the way they want us to. This is important because we shouldn't be beating ourselves up about this. A lot of us think it's a weakness, think it's a lack of willpower. Yes, there is a personal responsibility here, but also we must recognize that these programs, these mobile phones are appealing to a side of us that is biological, that we necessarily don't have influence over in the way we would like to. I mean, just to give you an insight, companies look to places like Las Vegas, the gambling capital of the world pretty much, and look at slot machines and try to incorporate that into the apps they design. Look at the Twitter and Instagram scroll down feed. When you fling it down, sometimes it refreshes, sometimes it doesn't. But that whole motion is based off of slot machines. The whole idea of randomizing whether it updates or not is based off of slot machines. They're literally using the playbook of addiction from gambling companies and whacking it into our mobile phones. The bright lights, the buzzers, the sounds, whatever it is, they are there to draw us in.
All of us are flooded by enormous amounts of information and distraction. I mean, this is the most distracted age in history.
The red notifications in the corners, they're basically there saying, you are missing out, get back into this app and see what people want to talk about. The notifications are there to tell you the exact same thing. Come back to the app, you are missing out. And it's difficult to avoid because it plays on that dopamine hit that we get when we see a new like, a new follower, a new comment, when we have that engagement. And basically, in trying to avoid and use our phones less, we are trying to fight against the science of how we behave. So of course it's going to be difficult. These techniques are literally creating psychological cravings. I came across this really interesting conversation with Natasha Schull, who was the author of Addiction by Design. And in it, she says, in the online economy, revenue is a function of continuous consumer attention, which is measured in clicks and time spent. So our attention on these devices and apps is revenue for these companies. So of course they're going to want us to spend as much time as possible. So hearing that, are you surprised that it's difficult to stop using your phone? And it is important to recognize that spending this time, like I said, although there can be benefits to it, it can have emotional, physical, mental, and even financial impacts on us. So it is something to be considered in our use of. So we've covered that this technology wants us to use it. But what effect does it have? How do you feel when you use your phone too much, when you're scrolling mindlessly? How do you feel? And one of the reasons that I started off the series with this video is because I found that I was using my phone way too much, and it wasn't the positive, productive, intentional use. I was using it at times when I shouldn't have been, so maybe at work, I would use it just at the bathroom, in a queue. I would use it just scrolling through Instagram, scrolling through dating apps, scrolling through whatever it was. I was using my mobile phone unintentionally. It wasn't benefiting me. I think many of us have this experience with our mobiles and overusing them and not really having that control or that ability to stop. And it can affect us. I personally found that I was less focused and therefore I was less productive. And when you're less productive and you have goals of what you want to achieve, when you don't hit those, it hits your self-esteem, because I didn't have the self-discipline to do these things. So it left me feeling pretty low because I wasn't achieving the things that I wanted to achieve because I was spending this time getting distracted. So I looked to try and change this. One of the things I looked at is a book that I find so interesting. It's called Inside the Nudge Unit. It is written by the behavioral scientist, Dr. David Halpern. And the idea behind the book is that David and his team use nudges to help people to do more positive. And in that same way they use nudges to help people do more positive things, they created friction around negative things. So friction is making what you want to do more difficult. So let's say I had a packet of cookies. If I have these right next to me, I'm more likely just to snack on them. It's easy. If I run to the top of this house, put them in the top corner, put them where it's difficult to reach, I'm going to be a lot less inclined to go eat that cookie. And that's what I need to do with my phone. I need to be a lot less likely to use it. So a lot of these tips are to create that friction, to create that difficulty in use. And also in that time that there is friction, you might have to think more about whether you want to use your phone and why you're using it to really get you thinking. Then it also comes down to tracking it, being aware of it, because once we're aware, we can take action. And really we have to understand why we want to stop using it. There has to be a greater benefit for us that we are working towards. If there isn't, it will be really difficult for us to stick to it and to stop using it as much. Anyway, here are some tips to help you with your mobile phone use and how to reduce it. The first thing to do is not look at your phone in the morning. I used to do this a couple of years ago. Would roll out of bed and I'd pick up my phone and I'd just start scrolling and I'd get stuck in that. But the morning can be an incredible time if you set a routine. Because if we roll out of bed, we look at our phone, we scroll through, we are setting ourselves up for distraction. That is the way we have started the day. And that's how the day will continue. Setting that discipline, not looking at it, it allows us to focus on things that are more important to us in the morning and get those done. Turn off your notifications. Like I said, these buzzes, these banners, whatever it is, they are there to draw our attention, to make us feel like we are missing out. We essentially want to make it harder to have these distractions. So turning off notifications on all your apps is really beneficial. Obviously, there are some apps that you might have to have access to if you're working and you take mobile calls or use WhatsApp. You're going to have to use that, but just use it intentionally. You know, don't use it for personal conversations, use it for work conversations. Really be strict about the notifications you need and get rid of all the other ones. It will help you so much. Another thing that can help that is airplane mode. Put your phone on airplane mode, super simple tip. I'm sure it's not even a tip for most of you. But if you want to do focused work, taking calls, getting texts, it distracts us. There is something called context switching, and that is when, say I'm working on something, if I then go to my phone and look at it, even if it's just for a minute, going back to the other work, I will find it more difficult to get focused. So that is what you're trying to avoid when you're trying to do work and be productive. So if there's something you need to focus on, turn your phone on airplane mode so you don't get those distractions. Another good thing to do is make your phone black and white. Now, like I said, there are bright colors. If you go to the notifications, they're usually red. They are there to make us click them. If you go to Instagram, there are bright colors everywhere. These are going to draw your attention and they are nice to look at. If you make your screen black and white, it suddenly becomes a lot more dull, it becomes a lot more boring, and therefore your sort of reason to get distracted diminishes. This is a really useful one. If you have an iPhone, I'm not sure about other phones, but on my iPhone I've set up a triple tap button where it goes black and white, and this helps me so much because not only is it there to not look aesthetic, but it also reminds you why your phone's black and white because you're trying not to use it. Another quick and easy one is putting the apps that you use the most that are unproductive on the last page. Therefore, you have to scroll through. That time you're scrolling, you can really think, should I be going to this page? Should I be going to these apps? Again, it's that just increased level of friction. The other things that I found are using downtime. Now, this is an iPhone app. It probably exists on other phones. I can't tell you where though. But what it does is it sends your apps between a time, so mine's 8:45 till 5 p.m. My apps are down, I can't access them, and if I try to, it gives me 1 minute to ignore the limit, 15 minutes, or I can ignore it for the whole day. This is a constant reminder, so when you're clicking to use an app, having that pop up, and even if you just click use it for 1 minute, when that minute is up, it reminds you, it cuts you out of the app mid-use, and this is just really powerful for just getting us to not engage in that app, because one of the things we do so much is just end up mindlessly scrolling. So if it comes in and disrupts that, suddenly we're like, oh, I was supposed to be doing something more productive. So I found that a really useful one, and I use it across the weekends, and I'm thinking of even extending the time that I use it for because it's still easy to get lost in these apps. Another thing for friction is, like I said about the cookies, you can put your phone in a drawer, you can put it further away from you. If it's not here and it's more difficult to reach, you will be more considered about it. And also, like I said, if you're opening a drawer, when you go to open it, you know that you are going for your phone. It gives you that time to think it through. So all these things are piling up more and more friction. The black and white, the no notifications, putting it in a drawer, turning on airplane mode, helps to get rid of some of those distractions and also makes it harder for you to use your phone. And that is really beneficial. Yes, it requires discipline, but the more of these things that there are, the better it is for us. One thing I found beneficial is being aware of how much I use it. Now you can do this in apps, and what I decided to do instead was take a piece of paper next to my desk, and every time I use my phone, I would draw a little square, and in that square I would write next to it the time that I used it for, sometimes what app I used, and every time I went to reach for my phone but I didn't use it, I would put down a line next to the box. And what it did, it created a really clear, really simple idea of how much I was using my phone unintentionally during the day, how many times I was using it when I shouldn't have been, but then also how many times I was resisting using it. And that's really powerful because it reminds me that there is positivity here. There is overcoming this addiction, whether you want to call it addiction or this overuse or this unintentional use. It is really beneficial to have that there. It must have like halved the amount of boxes I drew in a day, and like the number of lines I drew was, you know, sometimes less because I wasn't craving it, but then other times, you know, having to resist that, it was more. But ultimately this helped me track it. When you're aware of how much you're using something and sort of why you're using it, you can then start to change the amount you use it and be like, is this beneficial for me? If not, you can start to try and cut it out, and just having that awareness really helps. And ultimately, I think a lot of this discipline and this ability to change this comes from our why. Why do we want to use our phones less? You know, like I said, it was causing me less focus, I was less concentrated, I was achieving less of what I wanted to achieve. And those reasons really made me want to address this. I think if you don't have a why, it will be really hard to overcome this. Like, even if you put into play all these measures, yes, the measures will help, and like I said, they require discipline, and tracking it and being aware is amazing. There is a reason why we'll be going to our phone and seeking out these apps, seeking out to use our mobile. But I think we need to really understand our why. Like, why are you going to your phone and using it? Is it for distraction? Is it for that instant gratification, that stimulation? Is it for that connection? Trying to understand why we go to it and break that down, and then address those issues without having to go to our phone to do that. And we can start to work to have a more healthy and more intentional relationship with our phone. Because ultimately we are pretty much the first generation of humans that have ever been able to always not be bored, because we've got our phones, we've got these distractions, you know. It's not normal. You know, being bored isn't a bad thing, but we've been able to avoid that because of our phones. But I think it's important just to understand our why and really dig into that. I often use my phone when I'm looking for that connection. When I drop someone a message and they respond, I get that dopamine hit. And I think it's okay to be honest with ourselves that there is, you know, an addiction, or there is an overuse of these things. Being aware of it, understanding why we are sort of using it so much, it can be really beneficial. So one of the things that I really want to try out that I haven't yet is the 48-hour challenge. Now this is where you spend a weekend, or 48 hours, I guess it doesn't have to be the weekend, with no phone, with no distractions from it, no social media, no whatever. I think this can be really beneficial exercise because it can get us really thinking about what life is without our phone. What are the things that we're interested in? We can start to work on those, and maybe we actually discover, oh, this is what I want to be working towards. If you understand that, then you suddenly can start to be like, okay, well, the time I'm spending on my phone is going to distract me from that. So this is the reason, this is my why as to why I want to use my phone less. And like I said, that can then help us to be more consistent and more disciplined in avoiding our phone usage. And to sum it all up, phones are neither good nor bad. It is how we use them that decides that. And we can all, I think, use our phones more intentionally, trying to have the most positive impact and try and reduce the amount of times we use it, where it draws distraction, unproductivity. And I think we all want to be more focused, more disciplined, achieving more, being more productive, and we feel positive when we're doing that. So let's all try and just, you know, use our phones more intentionally. So what I'm also going to do is throw some of my favorite podcasts, my favorite videos and discussions on this topic down in the description of this video to help you guys out, and also just to you know, if you're interested in the topic more. Obviously this is just my personal experience with mobile phone use. There are people who are not more qualified than me to talk about this, but I just wanted to share sort of my journey and trying to be intentional with it. And also I would love to hear about your journey with your mobile phone, how you use it, is it beneficial for you, how have you found your productivity, your focus, all these sorts of things, because I really found it affected me, and that's why I created sort of this series, because I think these things affect us and maybe we don't talk about it or we don't share our experiences with it enough. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it beneficial. If there is anything that I've missed out, I mean, these are just things that I found beneficial. Maybe you have a ton of tips that you want to share with me and this community, and I would really love that and really appreciate that. And I think we're all here trying to be more intentional with things, trying to develop personally and also have a more positive impact on ourselves and those people around us. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to join this community, this journey of trying to live more intentionally, trying to have a more positive impact, then hit that subscribe button. Let me know what you think and of any things that you want to be more intentional with. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope you have the best week, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. I'll see you here next week. Bye.